We have made clear statements many times in the recent past with very little response from the government. Despite the calmness we are experiencing, there is a lot of anxiety, and most people are losing trust in the government.
We recall the pertinent and resolved issues we have raised recently with the government over taxation of Kenyans, the hiking of the missionary work permits, youth unemployment, regulations of the education system, especially the CBC and university loan scheme. This culture of lies, unkept promises, and misplaced priorities is unacceptable and needs to be dealt with.
The clergy have criticized politicians for advancing politics of self-interest and political wrangles, which risk balkanizing the country.
The political wrangles in the government have generated unwanted tensions and deepened divisions among our people.
It is baffling that a bill proposing an extension of the 5-year term to 7 years is being considered, and apparently there are plans to rush it through the legislative system. We need to critically scrutinize this political move.
The bishops have accused the government of reneging on its promise to clear arrears amounting to billions owed to faith-based hospitals under the National Hospital Insurance Fund, even as they poked holes on the newly established Social Health Authority.
We are appealing to the government to move the speed and reimburse the money spent and which are due from NHIF and now SHIF or SHA, whichever case it may be. The hospitals are crippled. They cannot serve our people, especially the most needy, because of this serious anomaly.
The bishops expressed their displeasure with the seeming laxity in the war against graft and addressing reported abductions, disappearances and killings of Kenyans.
Who is abducting these people? And is the government unable to stop these abductions and killings?
In the meantime, they are calling on Kenyans to unite in prayer during these precarious times. Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen TV.
Tunafikira ya kwamba kuna jama ya kunyamazisha wahubiri na pia kunyamazisha washiriki ambao wengine ni wanasiasa wenye wanatutembelea makanisani. Tumeona tukipigiwa simu na machifu, wengine wamepigiwa simu na waheshimiwa wakiulizwa watoe taarifa ambazo wale watu walitembea kanisani walikuwa wameleta. Tuliona mrorongo watu wakizuiliwa kuingia katika makanisa fulani. Kanisa mbili ambazo tulikuwa tumetembelea hatukuingia, na kulikuwa na GSU walikuwa katika ground kuzuilia tusiingie kwa makanisa. Tunaonelea kwamba rais amesema kuna uhuru wa taarifa, kuna uhuru wa speech. Na kama kuna uhuru, hatuoni sababu chief atupigie simu kutuambia tumtumie taarifa, ama mheshimiwa yeyote yule, ama kiongozi yeyote ile.
Juzi alisema ya kwamba ye aungi mkono mambo ya freedom of speech na worship katika Kenya. Lakini tunaona ya kwamba hii mambo haiendi vizuri. Anasema kwa mdomo, lakini huko mashinani tunaambiwa mambo mengine ya kwamba kila kanisa lazima iweze kuwa accountable katika maneno ambayo wanafanya. Watu wanakuja kutuuliza baada ni nani ambao mnakaribisha katika makanisa yenu kuja aidha katika ibada zenu. Hata wanakuja wanaketi kule nyuma watu ambao tuwajui na tukawaambia waweze kusema majina yao, hawasemi. Baadaye wanatoka nje na kuanza kuuliza washirika hao watu ambao walikuwa wamekuja huku mlikuwa mmewaita kwa nini? Kwa hivyo kuna uhuru wa wabunge kutembelea kanisa yoyote, hao ma MCAs na sisi kama washirika tunahubiri injili kwa watu wote Kenya, akiwako hata rais.
Kama sasa chief anapatikana akichukua nafasi kutaka kujua kanisa ilisomwa nini, hawa wabunge pia wanataka, kama wewe ni mbunge wa area ile watu wamekuja, unapiga simu unataka kujua pastor fulani alikuwa anazungumza nini, kwa nini watu fulani walikuja kwa kanisa hii. Sasa inaonyesha ni kanisa, ni kama mlango wa kanisa umefungwa na serikali, wao ndio wataamuru watu watakaye kuja kanisani.
Unapokuona waafisa wa polisi wanakuja kuangalia watu wakihubiri, wala kile tunahubiri kivile kiko, tunaona hiyo ni jambo ya kufinyiria watumishi, kwa sababu kama sisi watumishi tunafunza na tunahubiri na neno kulingana na ile neno Mungu aliweka ndani ya mtumishi. Hatuwekagi kuhubiri kenye kimeandikwa mahali, ni kile tunaomba Mungu anatuelekeza kama watumishi vile tutakayefunza watu. Kwa hivyo hatuoni haja kabisa ate kile tunahubiri ate kunaye mwingine hajakuwa, kwa hiyo anakuja kuangalia. Ni kitu yenye hawezi kusema na ni kitu hawezi kufuatilia, kwa sababu kile unanena ni kile Mungu amekupatia. Funza hawa watu hivi waelekeze hivi.
Now it's the church against the government. Well, the time that the bishop started speaking about the injustices of this government is when the Gen Zs took to the street and say that we are going to occupy all churches in parliament, because the churches, because of the need to fund the church projects and to ensure that the churches are built by funds which they expect ways of goodwill, made them, because unlike God, the bishops of God, or these watchdogs of God, were fooled or were blinded by the large amount of money that these members of parliament brought. Now, we have seen instances where these church leaders contribute to 1 million, and you have to remember that these members of parliament are actually these religious leaders, you have to remember they are human beings, and being human beings, we are also being influenced, or we have that desire to have more. So this has always made these religious leaders respect the members of parliament, who in very many ways have defiled the church, because they have brought money which has been said to have been stolen, which is public funds, to build these churches. And because they brought these funds, they were unable to speak. There's something we call in the procurement process in the government, the public servants are limited to amounts of gifts which they can receive. Now, this is because it can influence them or affect the fairness and competitiveness of the procurement process or the giving of tenders. Now, this is why the Constitution limits public servants against receiving gifts. Now, with this in mind, or using this scenario, or maybe other situation, if you are going to give me money when I need it and I don't need to pay it, even if I see that you're doing wrong, already my judgment is affected. Now, it reached a point where the Gen Z saw that the religious leaders have been corrupted, the religious leaders have been bribed and bought, so they could not be able to speak against the government that funds this project, that buys them cars, because remember, these projects do not circle around what we call only building churches. It also includes buying good cars, building churches, building homes for these religious leaders, among others. Now, because these religious leaders capture the church through this way, the pastors and these other religious leaders could not be able to speak against the same government that funds their projects. And funding, I mean by large amounts of money. So the Gen Z came up because they saw that the government is unfair and the churches and the religious leaders are quiet. So we decided to occupy parliament. It was a success. It went on occupy churches, and we say that there's no leader or political leader who is going to stand in the podium to lie.
Nikiwa nimesimama hapa nitamwalika ili aseme mawili matatu nikiwa nimesimama hapa.
Lisha hapo kusema mengi, nimeshukuru father wetu. Tulikuwa na MCS simame mahali mlipo, hamwezi kuongea. Tuliambiwa tusiongee. Wasimame tu. Wasisimame. Waketi vile wameketi. Haya basi. Basi this is called the Gen Z time. Ama namna gani jameni? So kwa hivyo sisi lakini wacha tu niwaambie tu Gen Zs wetu. You know, people may misunderstand what you are saying and what you are doing, but you've done a good thing. You've done a good thing. Because we must bring about this generational change and ensure that there's a way to do things differently. However, wacha niseme tu hawa MCs wangu wako na tabia mzuri na tuendelee na tabia mzuri, msiharibike. Mtu akikuwa na tabia mbovu tunaweka nje.
See, let me tell you, if there are people who are happy in CC, it is important for you to start speaking at this time. And we cannot lie that things have been alright. They have not been alright. There has been a lot of things in tunafaa kuwa tunarekebisha. Ama namna gani jameni? Na ya muhimu ni kwamba we must and agree ya kwamba we should be listening to one another. Ama namna gani? Without a barrier ya kusema kwamba hawa wachana nao, huu ni mtoto, hao ni nani. We must know that this country is all of us, ni yetu sisi wote. Ama namna gani jameni? So mimi where I stand as your governor, I am more than happy that now all of us can have a conversation and speak na tusikilizane.
Or use that opportunity to defy the church by going against the will of the people. And the bishops heard the voices of the people. Now they are speaking. And one particular guy, Oscar Sudi, Aaron Cheruyot, are all saying that the church is already contaminated. Now this is the problem when you work with Satan. When you work with Satan, whenever you try to criticize him, he will just remind you the day that you did together. And you know Satan does not do all these good things. Now Aaron Cheruyot and Oscar Sudi are bitter, and they're speaking to the church when in the past days when there was unfairness that these pastors were not able to speak. But remember that God gives an opportunity for someone to redeem himself. This is what I'm going to tell the bishops around Kenya and other religious leaders, that if you have seen that the Kenyans have spoke and they have failed, it's time now to correct. Continue speaking. Do not be afraid of what these people are saying. Because these politicians, if you are going to tolerate them, they are going to lie to us. If it is a culture of lie, say. Remember, they came to those churches to ask for massive voting. Now it is the same church that should stand up against them and say that they prayed on their behalf to be on those seats and that they should work towards ensuring that they present the voice of God. So the bishops, what I'm likely to say to the bishops, that do not be afraid of speaking. The religious leaders, do not be afraid of speaking. Speak, because that is the voice that we need. Speak because they know we are vulnerable, they know that they trust God and they are using the word of God to